One of the theodicies, if we can just- yeah, yeah. One of the theodicies or God justifications that have been given is known as the best world solution or the optimal world solution. Here what we see is that this is the best of the worlds that can ever be created. That God could not have created anything better than this world. Given the nature of this world, there can be nothing better than it. This is known as the optimal world argument. Now what this particular theodicy or God justification does is, it examines the world, examines the attributes of God, and states that the world in which it is perfectly compatible with God as we describe God. So God does not lose His omnipotence, omniscience, free will, good nature, and despite all of that, the world can remain the way it is, and it makes perfect sense. In it will also be the explanation of evil and the role that evil plays. Now, when Mulla Sadra offers this sort of an argument, it is based on a lot of philosophical presumptions. And of course, he has explained them all away. And now, to your dismay, I too will do the same. What we will do is, we will look at the nature of God. This sort of a world maintains all the following attributes of God. God is perfectly complete. Why does he need to say that God is perfectly complete? There is no objective for God beyond His self. When God is perfectly complete, He cannot create anything that is defective. When God has no objective beyond His own self, nothing adds to His being. So He does not have a need of creating anything that is defective. Complete knowledge, ability, and care. If He did not have complete knowledge, He can create something which is faulty. If He did not have complete ability, there can be flaws in His world. If He did not care, He would not care for the well-being of His creatures. There is unity of essence, attributes, and act. As opposed to human beings, we may be well-intentioned people. But at the level of our actions, we may not be able to execute our intentions to the fullest of our want. But with God, His essence, attributes, and acts are one and the same thing. His essence is complete, perfectly caring, full of knowledge. His act has to reflect all of that. His full care, full knowledge, full ability. Acts with choice and without any coercion. He has absolute free will. Nothing can become an impediment. So God can do whatever He wants, and if that's the case, then there is nothing stopping God from creating the best world possible. No impediment in His act. He has no coercion. 2, there are no intermediaries that can prevent His act from taking place. We may be free-willed individuals, but the situation at times does not allow us to manifest our act to the fullest of its extent. God, according to these points, has no restraint or constraint at all. Next slide. God's knowledge, furthermore, is not based on Him knowing us. If we were to say God's knowledge is based on Him knowing us, then we can say that God is constantly evaluating knowledge and re-evaluating it and seeing where the flaws are and correcting them. In God's case, God's knowledge of everything else is simultaneous to His knowledge of His own self. That is based on the principle that before God created anything, He created it through His knowledge. And since His knowledge and His essence are one and the same thing, it is nothing but the flow of His essence that declares itself in His act. So that then is not a problem that we had with the foreknowledge and middle knowledge. God's knowledge results in His act. God knows everything perfectly, and God's knowledge is the act of this world. God is content with His act. So therefore, God needn't create something which is less than perfect. It is a human trait to do something, then not be content with it and better it. God works in the optimal way. He is content with His act and is perfectly free. We find that the world is always moving and increasing in its existence. In the sense that a seed, when planted, it sprouts and grows into a tree and bears fruit. A child, as soon as it's conceived, it starts increasing in existence and starts evolving. There is an evolutionary motion within the child. So, from a state of lack, they go through the state of completion. World is reaching its completion. The whole world in its entirety is evolving, and this evolution is towards completion. How does then evil and suffering fit into this? That the world as it is cannot become greater than what it is. In order for it to become greater than what it is, it has to move. Once it moves, that motion results in difficulties, what we call evil, what we call whatever. And therefore, it serves a greater purpose of growth. And evil provides that growth, and we will explain that in a second. Now, nature of evil given the nature of God and the world. Evil is necessary due to the evolutionary nature of the world. How is that possible? Everything is constantly tearing itself apart in order to grow. People are dying in order to allow new life. People are going through arduous processes of growth and encounter difficulties before they grow. The changing evolutionary nature of the world necessitates evil, or what we call suffering. Now, in that, what Sadra states is that every lower level of existence sacrifices itself for the higher level of existence. So the plants become food for the animal kingdom. And the animals become food for the human individuals. Those evils are serving a noble purpose. For they are being cut, they are being killed, their life is being lost, but in order to serve the evolutionary growth process of the world. Yes? So he's explaining that sort of evil there. The world does not have the capacity for the removal of evil. The world as it is does not have the capacity for removal of evil because it would not grow otherwise. For example, let us give an example. Fire. The world cannot remove the evil from the fire. The fire performs a noble cause and allows for growth, but it still burns innocent people and puts them to death. And that is an evil that results from fire. In the same way, the evolutionary nature of the world will cause relative and relational evil, and it is not within the capacity of the world to get rid of it, given that it is a moving evolutionary world. When we look at evil, we will find that it is relational. What we mean by relational evil is that somebody may find something evil, but within itself it is not evil at all. For example, pig in itself, alcohol in itself is existent. It's nothing but good. Poison in itself is existent. It's nothing but good. But poison, alcohol in relation to the well-being of a human being is evil. And hence it is a relational evil. What he's trying to say there is that God does not create evil. It's almost a byproduct of the good that God has created, even in this model of the world. Evil is relative and at times accidental. How is that? Relative in the sense that people react to same calamities in different ways. 2, the fire's aim is to provide heat and wholesome food. Accidentally it burns, but fundamentally it is there to perform a good, noble task. Relative. Blindness is evil relative to somebody who has sight. So it's lack of existence. Health and sickness are same. The main point he is making here, in line with Ibn Sina, is the removal of evil entails greater evil. For example, if God were to make fire cold, it would result in greater evil. In the sense that the people would not receive heat in the extremity of cold, and that would be far more damaging. In any case, if God were to remove any of these agents of evil, they would result in far greater evil. So this is what Sadra has presented. Can we have the next slide? Conclusion. The evolutionary world is the optimal world. Since the perfect immaterial world has already been created, and not creating this world would have entailed loss of great good. What does he mean here? The one objection that we can give to Sadra is, well, why did he have to create this world anyway? Why couldn't he create a world without suffering? The answer is, he already has created a world without suffering. So why did he not stop at that world? Why did he have to create this world? The answer is that in the grand scheme of things, every world had been created. Only this sort of world remained to be created. We say, well, could he not have chosen not to create? The response that they give is that had he chosen not to create this world, a lot of good would not have come into existence. Like me and you. We are the substance of this world, and if this world was not created, we too would not be created. This world cannot exist prior to a more perfect world being in place because everything flows in a sequence. I cannot anticipate that wall to have a beam of light generated by the torch that I am holding without there being a connected stream of light leading it there. Yes? So the philosopher's system is this, that before the lowest world comes into existence, the noblest of worlds has to be in existence. And to an extent, of course, the Quran and the spiritual literature justifies this, that first there was the creation of the angels, and then this, and finally this. Yes? So all the other worlds are created in the hierarchy. This was the only one that remained. His whole issue is to say that this world in itself is the best of all worlds that could be created, as opposed to the other theodicy which says that God cannot create the optimal world. Whatever world He creates will still be lacking. He's saying in the opposite, no. God has no constraints. He has absolute free will. He is perfectly generous. Nothing stops Him from creating the best possible world. And this was the only world that remained in the whole hierarchy, and He created it in the best possible way, given the nature of this world, what it is, as it is. God is perfectly generous. He is not a miser. Every level of world had been created. The angelic world, the spiritual world, the world of the soul, everything was created. All that remained was a material world, the infinite material universe. All that remained was this. And in keeping with His perfect generosity, He initiated this world and He created this world. And had He not created this world, a lot of good would have remained hidden. How? The recognition of God would not be there. Striving towards morality and perfection of human attributes would not have been there. Us becoming God-like would not have been there. The plants, the animals, the colors, the tones of music, the scenery, the rising of the sun, the setting of the sun, none of this would have been there. The fire, the meat, the cold, the heat, the contrast, every beautiful thing that is there, the carpet, the tapestry, the beautiful layers, the softness of texture, the emotions, sense perception, sentiments, all these beautiful existences would have remained concealed and hidden, and that would be the greatest evil, that this beauty should fail to reveal itself. Yes?
But does God need any of that if He's pure good?
No. This is another fundamental question which we need to come to afterwards. As I said, when a person wakes up in the hospital, he says, "Where am I? Why are all these wires upon me?" But he presumes that I am and I know what I am. A more fundamental question would be, why am I and who am I? What are these wires? What are their relation to me? Those are the major questions we need to go on to afterwards. There's a hadith of the Prophet that if the son of Adam were to stop sinning, he would destroy the race and create another one that would sin, so that God could be the forgiver. Yes? Now here obviously what he's saying is that if the son of Adam were to stop sinning, it means he has reached the desired purpose and he serves no more purpose. So once the world is perfected, obviously it has no more purpose. Can you see that? It's time for something else, or it evolves into something else. This is what Sadra has said. So now we go on to the next slide, which is a criticism. Now there are 2 or 3 things we can say here. The problem of theodicy, or justifying God, cannot be satisfactorily responded to by mere examination of the world order and through it to claim that God cannot or chooses not to intervene, since a theist worships a God who cares and intervenes. At the very least, a theist expects a reasonable response for the sufferings. So here we have conflict. One is we have miracles happening. As Salim Bhai said, in all probability, miracles are just metaphorical. They didn't occur at all. But the Quran talks of miracles. And a theist bases his whole understanding of God on the communication of God. So on the one hand, Sadra is saying God will not intervene. God himself is showing instances of intervention. And that therefore increases the dilemma. That's one. 2, well, God, at least you can communicate with me meaningfully and tell me why you are choosing not to intervene. If not to me personally at the level of my own difficulty, at least generally within your revelation, explain to us why at times you decide not to intervene. But you never do that. You always say the opposite, that I can do whatever I want, call me and I'll respond. You say it in the affirmative that you will and you are capable of, but you never provide an explanation as to why you won't. I mean, in the concrete he hasn't, yes? 3, the acute problem is of what we call needless suffering. The problem has not been responded to. Although Sadra said, God is mysterious and knows best what are the hidden reason for the existence of seemingly useless evils. But that is not a justification, because a theist chooses to believe in a God who can produce the same result without the means being there. Is that not so? Either now the theist God needs to be refined totally, or we need to find a response that fits with the theist God as the theist God stands. I would say the theist God is perfectly fine. There requires further clarification, and these theodicies are going some way towards examining the world as it is and whatnot, but they are not providing the answers in the concrete. Can you go to the next one, please? Based on the above, now here are the fundamental questions. Why did he have to create such a world given that he could have chosen not to? The answer was, a great deal of good would remain concealed. Remember that answer? I ask, did a great deal of good have to be revealed at the expense of my damnation? Think about it. You could have kept me hidden. I would have been perfectly fine with that. And this is a very true response. A person tortured, a person dying of hunger will say, God, for you to satisfy your need of revealing a great deal of good, does it justify you creating me? And if you created me, you could have created me without sensation of pain and suffering. For example, I, as an individual case, I could ask Allah, why didn't you cause my skin to be in such a way that I don't receive any pain? Why didn't you make my emotional state such that I wouldn't be so sensitive? Why have you made me the way I am and decided to reveal all your hidden treasures at my expense? Isn't that still a question, would you say? A genuine question to God? Because by you revealing all your colors and wonders and beauties, only you are rejoicing. I would much rather not have seen it, provided I wasn't suffering in this world and did not face the prospect of hell awaiting me in the hereafter. Who would want to be in this world in the first place? Would you? I'm sure nobody in their right mind would want to be in this world, especially given that there is death, and after death there is barzakh, and after barzakh qiyamah, and after qiyamah there is hell. Who would want to, in their right mind, come to this world? Why can't he intervene and minimize certain forms of evil, given he has performed miracles? Can you see that? Why does he choose at some time and chooses not at other times? Why hasn't he explained the reason for suffering in a satisfactory way, given that he has spoken to us? These are the fundamental questions that still remain unanswered, and to me, Sadra's examination of the world is perfectly fine. We can't fault him on that, but he does not still explain away satisfactorily the deeper seated question that is there, and maybe it is indicating to us that that one has no response. And because of the lack of response, it prompts us in our yearning to find God and sustains that continuous process of growth. Maybe it is telling us that no, the response has to come personally from here, and it can never come from here. Although we will try and attempt to do both. Is that the last slide? That's it. Thank you all very much, and inshallah we'll resume tomorrow.